Hey, basketball fans, it's DC Hewitt, and I'm the Fantasy Basketball Analyzer. I'm here to help you get ready for Week 13 in the NBA season. Help you look at your matchups, set some lineups, and get ready to go win. Let's get into the schedule. But first, beer! So I'm rocking my Ja Morant hoodie because today's beer is Ja! We don't have to worry about which nickname we're going to give anyone because it's just on the nose. My brothers gave me this hoodie, so that wasn't quite so Bulls-centric back here. And I think we all I think we all love the young Ja Morant, his athleticism and his fearlessness going to the rim because he hasn't quite been injured enough yet to learn it. He's got a little bit of that D-Wade getting knocked around in his game. But he's exciting to watch, and we haven't done this in a bit. So today's beer is Ja. It's a raspberry black ale. All right, let's get right into the season. I'm wearing Ja because, unfortunately, this hoodie is maybe the only play he should get this week with only 2 games. Let's look at the schedule. All right, it's a pretty good week. We've only got 9 teams with 4 games. Boston, Chicago, Cleveland, Indiana, Minnesota, OKC, Orlando, Philly, Portland. And 2 games for Charlotte, Memphis, Washington. None of those are powerhouse teams, but you're probably going to miss Devontae. Ja, as I said, Beal, if he's playing. So they're all 2 games. I think they're probably all rests unless you got no better options. That also means that for some of the so-so matchups, you can't really capitalize on them the way you sometimes would because Charlotte has a low pace of play, but they've got a really bad defense, so there's someone that we attack. Memphis, bad defense. Washington, bad defense. These are all teams that we like to attack in fantasy. So for the most part, other than, daily change leagues or you're looking at DFS, it's going to make a little less opportunity to really pounce and feed on some of the bottom teams. With that, let's go ahead and look at the pace of play, see if anything's changed, and who we do want to attack this week. All right, I don't think we're really seeing any shockers here for the teams we ideally want to attack for the fastest pace and the weakest defense. Washington, Atlanta, New Orleans, Memphis, Cleveland. Cleveland's been working their way up. They made it into the top 5, meaning the worst 5, the 5 we most want to attack. They made it in there last week, and they're still there. So they're just edging out Portland and Phoenix. For the teams we fear a little bit, Orlando, Toronto, Boston, Lakers, Utah. No surprises there. There's also Denver, Philly, Indiana. They're getting just a little bit edged out, but they're lumping down there at the bottom with some slow pace of play and some good defense. So Denver's got one of the slowest pace of play, beat only by Charlotte being really slow, which is kind of surprising. Denver's got that, but their defense just isn't quite as strong. We've talked, if you've been watching since the start of the season, in the first month, I was saying Denver's defense was rated really well, but it was just seemed fueled a bit by luck. You can look up the statistics. They were giving up quality shots, and they just weren't falling. It looks like reality's kind of caught up with them a little bit. So they're still down there. You're still not excited to play them, mostly because of slow pace of play at under 100. All right, let's go ahead and look at the week and see what this actually means for us. Now that I've digitally scooted to the side and we put the whole schedule up here, let's take a look. Same as usual, green and red, desirable, undesirable. I'm trying to see if there's any really standout weeks besides you guys pausing this and helping set your lineup for yourself. Houston's got a pretty good schedule. They get to play Memphis, Portland, and then the Lakers. Lakers, it's not a super desirable matchup, but the guys might be ready for that game, and at least Houston gets them at home for that. But Memphis and Portland are teams you can definitely attack. Obviously, any of the teams with 4 games you want to get in your lineup if you can. Chicago's got a mixed bag. They play Boston and Philly, which are strong defenses, and then they get to feast on Washington and Cleveland. For you get daily change leagues or playing in DFS matchups, just to call out, there should be a really fast game. Cleveland gets to play Memphis on Friday. Cleveland gets 2 days of rest beforehand, and the exact same thing as Memphis, so they should be ready to run. Neither team's good at defense, and they've got that pace a bit up there. Cleveland's pace is a little lower, but Memphis definitely moves the ball. When they start going at each other, that should be a big game. It might be, I was going to say fun to play, but Cleveland's really still just not that fun to watch. But Memphis, I think, always is. I can't talk shit about Memphis right now. I'm wearing my Ja hoodie. None of the 3-team weeks are really standing out as being problem matchups overall. No one's got an overly negative schedule. So it's kind of a nice week, set your schedule. You get to go with your stars, take a look at it. Use the amount of games played to help break any ties, split the difference for it. You want to err on the side of getting an extra game, in my opinion. But you can play your superstars. There's no big threats out there. From there, let's jump to the back-to-backs and take a look and see what we want to capture on. First off, I want to know what's happening at the end of the week. It's not necessarily going to impact your team too much this week, but I just don't want to forget to mention it. So on Sunday, you'll see that I flagged Indiana, Denver, San Antonio, and Miami, all as being in the first of a back-to-back. That means Monday they have a game, even though you can't see it's a back-to-back on the schedule. I also put something new. There's little X's on the Clippers and Dallas. What that's actually indicating is every single team has a game on Monday of next week, except for Dallas and the Clippers. I just want to make a note so I didn't forget when I was showing the grid. So Monday, I believe, is Martin Luther King Day. All the teams are playing except Dallas and the Clippers. So everyone's got a game there Monday. So just calling that out waiver-wise, you're not going to be shuffling anyone crazy to start next week. So you don't really have to jump in there to get an advantage for next week, because everyone's going to be playing. That also, right now, so I don't forget, in case you miss next week's video, Martin Luther King Day games usually start a little bit earlier on Monday. If you set your lineup when you get to work on Monday, or you're setting it at lunch on Monday before the games, that will screw you next week. So here's your reminder. Don't get your lineup locked if you're in a weekly locks league or even just a daily league where you forgot to make a change. You want to do it Sunday night of next week, okay? If anyone misses, I do want you to comment. I've been there too. I think we've all probably been there, where you go and say, what? Why did the game start at noon East Coast? Beyond that, you can see the teams with back-to-backs. So Cleveland's got 2 sets of back-to-backs. We've got a kind of interesting week. They go out to LA and play both the LA teams. It'll be a little bit harder matchups. And then they get to play Memphis and Chicago at the end. But they're fully on the road for the whole week. Probably not relying too heavily on any Cleveland players. So maybe that doesn't affect you that much. If you're trying to play a waiver game, shuffling in for the daily change leagues, Houston's got the early Memphis-Portland matchup. Those are both desirable teams, and they get to play them on back-to-back. You might want to shuffle them out for someone like Minnesota, OKC, Philly, or Portland, if there's anyone on your waivers, or even Toronto, that have that weekend back-to-back. And when I'm saying weekend, I mean the Friday-Saturday matchups there. No one has a Saturday-Sunday back-to-back going into this. Probably because of the scheduling anomaly for next week with so many people playing Monday. They couldn't do 3 games in 3 nights. That would have been a little too crazy even for the NBA to set up. All right, and this week I just want to end with something a little bit new for me. I spend time saying, here's a play, here's who's sit, and don't really talk about weekly waivers, so to speak. Partially, that's just, I don't know who's in your lineup and all these things, or I do these bigger waiver videos with research, and then the time expires. So I'm just going to rattle off some names. Maybe you can look for, see what your team needs are, what, categories you're trying to capitalize on. But here's some guys with good matchups this week. So if you're scrambling, like I said, don't play Ja because he's only got 2 games this week. Some options could be going for the Bulls. Chris Dunn somehow, despite leading the league in steals, is available in over half leagues. All these people will be available in at least 50% of Yahoo leagues. So they might not be available in your leagues. So I'm going to rattle off some options. So for point guard, Chris Dunn, Kobe White, if you're looking for threes or steals to, reverse that respectively. Shabazz Napier's been playing pretty well for Minnesota. They had some injuries, so he had to fill in, but he was having a good week. If you look at the last week, he could be worth picking up, both for playing with 4 games this week or just in general. And Markelle Fultz is still out there and playing pretty well. Marcus Smart, if you can slip him in at shooting guard. Jared Culver for Minnesota. I don't know if I totally believe it yet. He's young, so I've got my skepticism, but if you need a guy to slip in there, Chris Dunn, who I already mentioned, but he can play 3 positions now on Yahoo. Or Damian Lee might be worth a pickup, if not now, but extended. The Warriors made a move. They cut Marquise Chris so that they can try and bring on Lee and try and get him to a full contract for the rest of the season. So he might get some more run. If you're in a real pinch, you could play him now. Golden State's only got 3 games, so it's not necessarily a have-to move, but it's an option out there if you're dealing with some injuries and stuff. For small forward earlier, when I talked about Cleveland's schedule, I was like, Cleveland, you're probably not playing too much. But Osman's out there if you need him. He's got 4 games this week. And Sekou Doumbouya from Pistons. Detroit's only playing 3 games this week, but Sekou, I think, is someone you should just pick up. In my super deep sleepers at the start of the season, he was one of the guys that I thought was worth flagging if you couldn't hold on to. He popped a couple of weeks ago. Pistons finally look like they're maybe accepting the fact that getting the A seed over and over again and not going anywhere is really not worth it. So Sekou's getting some run. He's playing really well. Somehow he's owned in Let me check my sheet here. Somehow he's only owned in 28% of Yahoo leagues, and that just seems crazy. I looked in a couple leagues and didn't really have a spot to fit him in there, so I know how it goes, but someone in your league should probably be owning Sekou right now. At power forward, Thaddeus Young is going to fill in. Well, they've got so many injured big men. Last Wednesday, he came out and had 18, 6, and 3. Pretty good matchup, and, and Wendell Carter's going to be out for maybe 2 months now, so Thaddeus Young, well, he hasn't been very relevant this season, might be really valuable for you if you can go scoop him up. He's got 4 games this week. For center, Tristan Thompson had a good week. I don't really believe it. I think it was just a flash in the pan game, but, so I guess Tristan Thompson, but not really. He's got 4 games if you need it. There's been times in the season where I've had to pick him up and lock him in there for a week. And Gorgie Jang is still playing for Minnesota, and he's doing really, really well since he's been a starter. Somehow, he's still available in over half of leagues. He's only 45% on Yahoo. So that's just a quick rundown of the 5 positions, so you can grab someone if you need it, if they're available in your leagues. If not, oh well, thanks for watching. Go out there, win your week, and I'll see you guys again next week.